Welcome to our Facebook Live audience. You're now on the road beyond. I'm Todd Duplantis. We're going to take you to places both far and near. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight. Ike McFadden, my co-host. Good to see you again, Ike. It seems like it's been a long time.
Hey, dude, how have you been?
Great, since about 10 minutes ago. Hey, we were talking in our last episode about pigmen. Maybe our next guest will be able to comment on that story we talked about out of Vermont, but we've got an incredible show. We're talking Bigfoot tonight. I'm excited.
Yeah, we have Jonathan Odom. He has had a fascination with the paranormal from an early age. He is the son of a Pentecostal preacher, so he was aware that there were things outside the normal world for a long time, I suppose. He started reading everything he could about the paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, and so forth. And after having a Bigfoot encounter when he was really young with his father, it started this whole lifelong fascination with the Big Feet folk.
The Big Feet folk, known as Sasquatch. Jonathan has had many encounters with the legendary Sasquatch. He even started his own YouTube channel, which you're going to see some clips from that tonight. He posts his findings on there, and he joins us on the show. Jonathan Odom, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. We can get you to unmute your microphone.
Okay, there we go. I got it.
Here we go.
Yay!
Good to see you, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to always talk about Bigfoot. It's exciting stuff. So.
Now, you're located in the Alabama area. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And tell me, I want to go back to, Ike was talking about it in the opening, but you had your first encounter with a Bigfoot when you were a child. Tell us about that experience and what exactly did you see?
Me and my father would fish for rock bass in a reservoir in Franklin County, right above Marion County. And it was a dam that was pretty remote. There was not houses back then, very close to it. But we would fly fish for rock bass. And we would put a little trolling motor on a little aluminum boat. We'd go around, and we were in a corner of a jetty over there. And we looked, and I was fixing to draw back and throw the fly, and I thought it was a tree in the water, and it was a Bigfoot, and it turned and looked at both of us, and we didn't do anything. It just kind of glided, and it was such a surreal encounter. It looked back at us and then went up the bank and looked back again and just walked up the bank. And the strange thing about that is we never talked about it until years later. Wow. It was just, but we had a lot of weird stuff happen in our life anyway. So I look back now and think, well, that really wasn't the big deal at the moment,
Did you see its face, number one, and did you see its eyes? I've heard different descriptions of the face where it looks very human. What did you see?
The one I saw, the first one, looked very human, very intelligent in the eyes. The eyes didn't look like a predator, like a lion or a coyote or a wolf. They were I think that's what struck me most when I talked to my father. They were very human-like, in a weird sort of way. A lot of people talk about, well, if I see one of these things, I'm going to shoot it. No, you won't. You're just not going to do it because that look in the eye, it's almost like a primeval connection. I don't know. It's a very weird, hard to describe feeling. Very human-like. So
you said, I think you said that you had this experience and yet you never talked about it with your father for a long time. Out of curiosity, why was that, and how did it finally come up?
I don't really know. I've talked to a lot of people since then. I've taken over 3,000 reports, probably the last 10 years in the Southwest, or not the Southwest, the Southeast. And that's a common factor. People don't usually talk about it until later. During that time in my life, in my family's life, my dad had just left his church. He was pastoring. It was on the kind of the evangelistic field. So there was a lot of turmoil. I don't know. I asked him that a couple of months ago, and he was like, I don't know why. I mean, we camp. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I can totally relate to that because I think I told the story when we met with another expert not that long ago in the show, one of our other episodes. When I was a kid, around 9 or 10 years old, we used to go to a friend's. They called it a farm in Louisiana, north of New Orleans, and it was a house in a very rural area. And I remember I was with a friend of mine, same age, 9, 10 years old, and we were walking on what was considered like a trail or a cow path, and it was about a 6-foot wide path that went on as far as you could see, and several hundred yards ahead of us. And I remember this, it was daylight outside. Something stepped across and very quickly with one stride walked all the way across the pathway. And, it was very large. It looked hairy. It had a grayish, brownish tone to it. And, I didn't see a face. All we saw was the figure that walked across. And my friend and I looked at each other. We scared, and really didn't talk about it till years later. Now, my friend has passed by this time. He passed a few years ago, but it's something that I remember now to this day vividly. And I can't explain because during our years, we never really went back like, hey, do you remember that time we think we saw Bigfoot? No, we didn't do that.
Yeah. And back then, a lot of stuff like that was not really talked about. And I don't know why, because even when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in the woods. And I look back on experiences I had then, and I was like, I don't know. There was times that I smelled strange smells. Yeah. And I don't know if it was Bigfoot then. But yeah, it's an odd one. I still to this day wondered why we didn't just talk each other's ears off after it happened. I don't know. It's very weird. Very weird.
Now, this is a bit of a tangent, so bear with me here. Was there any, given that your father was a minister, right, does that throw any kind of different questioning or different perspective in terms of belief, in terms of if there's something else humanoid out there? How does that fit in with someone who believes the traditional Christian thing?
That's a very good question. That's a question that I've never had posed before me, but ever. This question is going to make me think a couple hours tonight because it's maybe, I don't know. You got a point. Maybe there was some conflict in belief there. I don't know. That's a very good question though. I'm going to be thinking about this later.
Now, I know, Jonathan, you spend a lot of time in the woods out there in Alabama, and you have a project where you look for Bigfoot, and you have a YouTube channel. Most importantly, folks can find you on YouTube. You post a number of videos on YouTube of your hunts. What exactly have you found during those hunts? And didn't you have an experience earlier today? Ask the question one more time. I want to make sure I get it exactly right. Well, I want to, you go out on hunts looking for Bigfoot. And I'm not talking about hunting. I'm just trying to find Bigfoot. And you film this and post it on your YouTube channel. But I also heard, I think our producer was telling us that you had an experience with one either today or recently that you've just posted.
Oh, yes. That one, the stuff that I show on YouTube is probably 10% of what I do, because I do a lot of stuff not on YouTube. And the reason I do it with the YouTube is to kind of show people that it's just not as easy as going out there and getting a picture. I mean, out of 10 hunts, I would say maybe a 30% success rate. But when I get one, like the one I posted a week or two ago, that one was right behind me. I walked right by it. And it's like, holy hell, I walked through that area 15 seconds before a storm front was coming in. So it was the top of that mountain. There was broken trees and the wind was blowing. And I was so concerned with the tree topping off on me that, I had to have walked right by it. And that's what's so infuriating is that'll happen. And then 2 days later from that video, I got a call from 2 older gentlemen who saw it crossing the road where I was. And I'm like, wow, if you could just do that to me with cameras, with dash cams. Yeah. But no, it's always somebody else,
Right.
So let me ask you this. I'm sort of the resident skeptic around here. And I'm familiar with that area. I think we discussed before the show, I know sort of generally the area you're talking about. And it seems like the kind of area you would expect to find things like that. Why is it, after all these years and all these digital cameras that we all have in our pockets, why do we not have non-blurry photos or some DNA or some Bigfoot droppings? What is your take on that?
Well, I don't mind that you're a skeptic, and I like that because I have a police officer on my team who has never really seen one, but he's heard them, and he's a huge skeptic. I appreciate that because it makes me do my work even more. You know, if it goes before a court of public opinion and it passes, that's good. Now, I believe on YouTube, there probably has been a lot of film that has been shot of Bigfoot. It's just, I think people are just harsh critics. The most perfect one is the Patterson-Gimlin, and that's a hard one. But then again, I know 10 or 15 Bigfoot investigators that don't publish on YouTube that has Patterson-Gimlin footage, longer and better footage, but they'll never publish it because they don't want to. I mean, once you get on a certain level of Bigfoot researchers, there's all kinds of footage out there. But these guys are the old guys, a little older than me, and they're stingy with their footage. I mean,
well, I can respect that because you helps a public speculation and critique, and you could ruin your reputation. I know with the Patterson footage, that has been refined over the years. But then even years later, after one of the men died, another was coming forward saying they faked it with an ape suit. I mean, you've got all these people creating stories, and it may have been the most significant evidence we have as far as something on tape.
Yeah. Now, and there's a million different conspiracy theories about why. I mean, I took DNA a couple of weeks ago off a handprint of my truck, and they sent the DNA back. It was mine. I messed it up, but they wouldn't do the other portion of it. And they said it was. Now I probably did mess it up because I don't collect that much DNA.
Right.
So I don't know. I think there probably has been a lot of footage, just people are so skeptical, and within reason, you need to be skeptical to a certain sense.
Sure.
So let me ask you this. I've heard of this, but I don't know what the details are. It's something called the Bluff Creek Massacre?
Is he talking about the Patterson-Gimlin footage that's supposed, I think, what is that guy in Mississippi's name? He said that there was a massacre after Patty. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Do y'all know?
Right.
Is that what it is?
I've heard a little bit of it. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What do you think is out there? Are we dealing with something that is humanoid? Do you think it's a variety of ape that hasn't been discovered? What exactly is out there? And then I'm also going to ask you your opinion on tying in Bigfoot to the paranormal, because that's been done as well.
Right. I don't know. That's a good question. Ask it one more time because I want to make sure I'm hearing it exactly right.
Well, I'm wanting to know if you think Bigfoot is an actual humanoid, variety of an ape, or is it something tied to the paranormal?
I believe, this is my personal beliefs, I believe it's a type of wood ape, kind of like the Wood Ape Conservatory in Arkansas. I kind of believe it is flesh and blood, and it can leave DNA. Now, then when you swap the hat around, and I'm not afraid to do this because I go out in the woods and have a Bigfoot hunt and a ghost shows up and I see stuff like that.
Right.
There's a lot of instances where the notes can be compared. Bigfoot can mimic owls. Owls are directly connected to the UFO abduction phenomenon in some sense. Yeah. So I've got 2 or 3 reports in Alabama the last 2 years of people that were federal judges that had Bigfoot experiences. They heard the owls, and then they had missing time. And basically, I just referred them to a MUFON investigator because I don't know what to do with that. So there's a lot. I think Bigfoot is not the only thing in the woods. There's other things. If you really, really want to open up, there's all kinds of different things. Bigfoot is just one part of the woods. Just like you can have a haunting, I believe in a haunted house, you can have a haunting out in the woods too. But that's my opinion. So
sure. Well, what do you go into that just a little bit more when you say there are a lot of things in the woods? What do you, is that some kind of human urge or fear of the unknown, or are you talking about something different there? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's not really the caveman in the cave in the dark, and then you figure out fire and he keeps the dark away. I have found out with a lot of my investigations and with YouTube, it's just, remember, it's maybe 30% of what I do because I do the other off camera, is there are, I believe, I've encountered stuff in the woods. I've encountered spirits. I've seen two dog men that I will publicly talk about. I've seen a thing one time with antlers. I've seen mist with my thermal. When I have my thermal set on white hot, I've seen negative black hot, negative 64 degrees Fahrenheit, walk up in front of the camera and then back in front of the camera. Me and my guys like, are you watching this? And that's in 32-degree weather in Todd National Forest. And that's freaky because when that happens, you're like, no. Anytime go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm fascinated by this. And just to go a little bit deeper in what Ike was saying, I'm sure you're familiar with David Paulides, with his Missing 411 series, book series, incredibly fascinating series, talks about thousands of people who've disappeared from state parks, woods, hunters over the past 100 years or so. He's investigated these cases. He's come up with some similarities, but realistically, no one can say what the hell's going on in the woods because people are disappearing. In many cases, they're showing up, sometimes alive. Most of the time, they're right next to somebody, and next thing you know, they're gone. What's going on out there? Because you're saying there's some weird things going on in the woods. There has to be more than what we're seeing.
Yeah. Now, 3 weeks ago on my YouTube channel, and if y'all want to play this clip, y'all can play it. It's 45 seconds. It is a woman screaming, and this woman screaming. I put audio recorders in the woods, and they'll run a month at a time, and I'll take the audio and I'll listen for Bigfoot and everything else. So I had this audio recorder on Forest Road 629, and I hear this woman screaming, pleading on one of the audio recorders. Now, it's on the YouTube channel. I've got a viewer warning on it because it's pretty brutal. That audio recorder was taken a half of a mile from a place I filmed 2 years ago where I come up on an abandoned camp. Now, for a person to be reported missing, he has to be reported missing.
Yeah.
They never did find out what happened with this person in the camp because nobody was ever reported missing. It could have been a homeless person. Fast forward to now, 2 months ago, I get this audio on 529, right at a half a mile from this abandoned campsite that I found 2 years ago. Got it on YouTube. You have this video of this woman being killed in the Todd National Forest. Now, what's crazy about it is it's an active investigation now. I had to turn over all of my audio.
I was going to ask if you went to the police. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I took it to the Rangers because I'd already had, but that road, there's Bigfoot there. And there's something else there. Do I know what that something else is? No. Me and my buddy Bill Rozier, we've heard it scream. We've heard it scream within 1,000 yards of us. And it just kind of, you can feel it in your chest. It's almost like if you're in an African safari and you're right beside the line in the Jeep and he just roars. It's the one time in my life I'm hunting Bigfoot that I told my buddy Bill, I said, I don't know if I'm ready for it to come out of the woods chasing me or not, because it's
I'm ready to get out of here.
Exactly. Because that time you're thinking, this thing's going to do with me what it wants to do. This is not going to, this ain't going to end with,
So let me ask you this, it's one thing to think, it's a giant hairy ape thing.
Right.
But there's some people who say, no, it's not that. It's also an interdimensional being of some sort. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Personally, I believe it is flesh and blood. Other theories, I used to be really hard about this. And the more I had an old gentleman tell me that hunted Bigfoot for a long time in the 80s and 90s, and he told me, he said, before you criticize somebody, look in the rabbit hole because you're going to see stuff that you agree with them with. Now, I don't think it's that. I think there are portals in the woods. I do believe that there's things in the woods that my biggest fear wouldn't be getting killed by Bigfoot. It would be going through something and a portal or something like that. That's actually probably my biggest fear. It's not Bigfoot. It's not other people. It's not anything else in the woods. It's that. Because I had a ranger tell me years ago, he said, if you ever see a spot in the woods that is a rectangle and it looks like an old TV, never go toward it. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, The next day, I came by the ranger station and I asked him again. And he was gone. His desk was cleared out. He was transferred. I didn't used to believe that would happen after Bigfoot reports with rangers. I've heard that many times. It happened to me, and I was like, holy shit. Now I'll watch for these things, and I've actually seen 2 or 3 of them. And I never have went back to the area because I don't know what it is. I'm terrified of something. I mean, anybody would, actually. You know.
I'm sorry. Say that again. You spoke to a ranger who said, if you ever see what in the woods, get away from it?
A rectangle?
Like a rectangle in the woods. It's like there's a screen in the woods, and it's when you look at it, it's like jiggly lines. Like you can see the normal around it, but in that area, it's like a square. And that's as good as I can describe it. And I mean, I guess, is that good enough? A good description?
Yeah, that's very descriptive. You know, the government is hiding something in some shape or form. Pallades, when he's looked to get research to do his book, he turned in Freedom of Information Acts asking for the people that were missing, and the government basically stood him. You know, they would not release all the information he needed for his investigations. This is public records, folks. I remember when I was doing a series of reports years ago, when I worked in the news industry, I called Texas Parks and Wildlife because, you know, the area we live in Texas, the Piney Woods area, is known for Bigfoot sightings. This was back in the late 90s. I asked the spokesperson, I said, do you have any recent reports for Bigfoot sightings? And he goes, you know, I've been here for decades and I haven't had one report. And I said, you sure about that? And he said, yeah. So we finished our phone call. He called me back 10 minutes later just to say he wanted to clarify with me that he never heard, all in his whole career, he's never had one report of Bigfoot. Why would he call me back just to negate something, again, that he already told me didn't happen?
Probably because he wants to keep his job, I imagine.
Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever. But anyway, let's talk. You mentioned dogmen. You've seen them out in the woods. We did a story on our last episode about a pig man in Vermont. We were kind of joking about it, but sounds like these are things people are actually seeing. And from what I'm hearing, dogman is just a modern word for what we used to call werewolves.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't see this one in the woods. I seen this on a farm outside a city in Alabama. The guy's dad was a Baptist minister and come out of his house, and it was in his chicken house. And he told everybody when he shot at it, the thing turned around and it had a snout on it, big long snout and big old ears. And the guy basically lost a lot of church members over it, went to his grave and died. But he died because of cancer, but it really bothered him. His son, which is a sheriff of a county, brought me into the thing, telling me about it. Fascinating history, and there is something over there. And what's really cool is on the backside of the property, some Romanians live from Romania, been there for like 50 years. And the coolest thing about on their property, they have like wood woven twine things in the woods, supposedly to keep it away, but it never goes on their property. So yeah, so I've seen that one. I've got some thermal footage I've never published of it running across a pasture. I mean, it's hauling butt, and it's big and tall, has the ears, you can see the snout. And then I did another one, and it was just it was outside of a municipality, Bessemer, Alabama, and heard it, saw it on night vision, and then never heard about it again. So I don't know. It's one of them I don't knows, fascinating though. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan Odom, we appreciate you joining us on the show. Ike, you got anything else you want to throw out there question-wise?
No, I don't. I mean, I'd be curious to hear your comment about, if you speak to your dad again about did this sighting have any impact on his religious belief? Maybe we can have you back on the show at some point and talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like that's a zing. That's a good question you don't expect, but it's like, I'll be thinking about this for days. That's a great question. Thank you for that. That's a badass right there.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Jonathan, yes, where can they find you? Where can they find your YouTube channel? Because I know you post videos on it.
Alabama, I think it's Alabama Bigfoot, and also Jonathan Odom, and on Facebook, Alabama Paranormal and Bigfoot.
All right, Jonathan Odom, Bigfoot investigator, thanks for being here. Let's get you back on the show. Get some good video for us, and let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. I sure will. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, we're going to move on to our news of the week. Ike, here's a look at some of the weird, tantalizing, and just plain bizarre stories posted from our partners at the Full Spectrum Project. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so we can get to these stories. So I'm going to let our director know we're going to share here and bring up the first story. Okay, Ike, here's my first story for the week. And I'm always fascinated by these stories involving lost civilizations. Well, you probably heard off the coast of Cuba, there's a lost city, right?
I've heard about this, and I think there's several of these because, as you mentioned earlier, I spent some time in Greece, and there's an entire complex that's out in a good 50 meters of water somewhere off the coast of Patras, which is the main port in Greece. So clearly, there's stuff out there that we don't really understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there that we don't know. It's funny you mentioned Greece because there's a lot of ties towards Santorini, possibly could have been the inspiration for Atlantis or could have been Atlantis. There's been talk about that. But they're saying that possibly this lost city off the coast of Cuba, there's a group of pyramid structures that were found in other shapes to elude a city, but they're saying, hey, this could be Atlantis. And some offshore engineers have been investigating this lost city. It's out there. And there's a map of where this is. This is from nerdbot.com is where we got this article. But it's not unheard of to have lost cities off of Cuba. You hear about them all the time. And there's that little thing, Ike, around there called the Bermuda Triangle, which stretches into that area. So maybe that plays a role with what's going on there.
Well, and remind me, I'm kind of pulling out of my memory here, but wasn't Atlantis originally mentioned by Plato in one of his dialogues?
Plato heard it from, I think Solus was the name of from the person he heard it from. And then they heard it recanted from Egyptians hundreds of years before. So this was a story told to somebody who told the story to Plato, who then retold it what he heard of third-hand information. So there you go.
Well, and really that's not, I mean, even if you are skeptical as I am, that whole area around the Mediterranean is volcanic, and there to this day are. You've got Vesuvius in that area, which is a huge volcano that I think actually erupted not too long ago, and you've got fault lines in that whole area. It's very active in terms of earthquakes. So the idea that there was some kind of civilization in the region or somewhere else along that area, it's not. That's not the craziest thing I've ever heard.
No, but finding Atlantis off the coast of Cuba, that may be a little crazy, but who knows? We're not going to judge them for saying that. So there you go. Lost civilization off of the coast of Cuba. Second one, this will be right up Jonathan Odom's alley, the Big Muddy Monster story. Okay, this goes back to our Pigman story in the last podcast episode, but we're going to take you back. This is from the Canton Daily Ledger. So if you're wondering, this is a legitimate newspaper. This is going to take you back to midnight, June 25th, 1973, where a group of, it looks like a couple was in the woods hanging out. And there were a carload of kids. They were at the Murfreesboro Riverside Park by the boat ramp. They start smelling something, Ike. Don't know what it is. Incredible smell. They're thinking it smells like a wooded bottomland, if you want to say. River slime was another word. I don't really know what river slime smells like, but it must stink. Well, apparently they had this large stench. They see this huge creature, looks like it's covered in slime, in hair, and they run away screaming. So what do? As they do with the pig man, they call out the police who bring out the dogs. They don't find anything. They just, those crazy kids, they're having fun out here, maybe drinking a little bit, and they think they saw themselves a monster. So they let that go away. Well, a few days later, two high school students around 10 o'clock at night near the same area start smelling something they relate to river slime. Apparently, it's a big thing up there. And they see the large creature as well. They call the police, call the dogs. They don't find anything. So this goes on for years. And to this day, there's been sightings most recently around 1942. So there you go. They say it always smells like river slime. It stinks. It's a large creature, looks a lot like, shall we say, Bigfoot, and it's covered in mud, and hence the name, the Big Muddy Monster. And that's from our friends at the Canton Daily Ledger. So what do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you say it's a legitimate news source. That's something is not really our strong suit, I'd say, on this show.
Come on, we get some of our NerdBots are great news stories. Come on now.
And also, having known you for years, you sometimes smell like river slime.
Yeah, well, river slime apparently is a big deal. I can't say that I've smelled river slime. Can't say that I've seen river slime, but I'll give it to those people who live on the river to let me know what it smells like.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is somewhat serious. Do you give any credence to this kind of stuff?
I think some of it, well, when they make the newspaper, we didn't have social media back in the 40s or back in those days. So, when it makes the newspaper, it's a story that there's got to be some credence to some of it. People are seeing something out there. They're not sure what, but they're all coming up with the same accounts. And you got to also realize Bigfoot's name, Bigfoot wasn't really known to the 50s or 60s. It was a legend, and it wasn't really talked about, and it didn't get the name Bigfoot, so they started doing castings back in the 50s.
Okay, well, yes, I get your point about that, but people have been crazy for a very long time.
Well, take a look at the last election season the last two of them. Yeah, people are crazy, and social media makes us more insane. So there you go, folks. All right, so that's our news for the night. Always fascinating to speak with Jonathan Odom. We look forward to having him back on the show. Hey, Ike, we have a YouTube channel.
Yes, I do know. I was the one who actually started it, I think.
All right. So folks can find it, and they can find us on YouTube under?
I think it's the Road Beyond Network, isn't it?
There we go. The Road Beyond Network.
In any case, we should probably put it in the show notes so people actually have a link to it instead of just...
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube. Also, follow us on Facebook. You can find us as the Road Beyond Podcast. And on Twitter, we're under Road_Beyond. Look for us on Twitter as well. We're on all social media. Ike, we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
I look forward to hearing your vaccination story after that. I hope you survive.
Yeah, I get my second vaccination this week. We'll have a full report on that next week. All right. Thanks for being here, Ike. We'll talk to you again soon.
See you next time, dude.
All right. See you all again on the Road Beyond.